What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another very exciting episode right here on the MIgardener channel. This episode is not going to be too long because it really doesn't have to be that long. And plus, I know you guys got stuff to do this weekend. It's Memorial Day weekend, so I know a lot of you guys are going to be out in your gardens and have got plans. So I hope you guys have a safe one, number one, but I hope you guys can use this episode to grow big or go home this weekend. So make sure that you use this and kind of tell me how it works for you, because I know everyone will be able to do it, at least if you have a garden growing at least. So that's what we're going to be doing, is we're going to be talking about compost tea. This is something we get asked a lot about, and it's a very common question. It's, Luke, do you use compost tea? Luke, how do you make compost tea? And Luke, how do I apply compost tea? So we're going to be talking about those three, and we're kind of going to be breaking down kind of the compost tea gray areas too. There's a lot of questions around compost tea because there's quite a lot of things that are recommended but are kind of unnecessary with compost tea. Not unnecessary in that they wouldn't work, but unnecessary in that, in my opinion, it's a lot of extra work for not a whole lot more of a result. So that's what we're going to be talking about. So the first question, Luke, do you use compost tea? The answer is absolutely. I love compost tea. In fact, compost tea is a great way to fertilize your garden and give them the nutrients they need really quickly. Because basically the purpose behind compost tea is that you're applying water to your compost and you're extracting all of the nutrients that are water soluble. So if you were to compare this to, say, Miracle-Gro, for instance, right? Miracle-Gro is an inorganic option, but you basically take a powder, mix it with your water, and it becomes water soluble. That's because all the nutrients found in Miracle-Gro, regardless of how bad it is, it's all water soluble. So the nice thing is that, in my opinion, this is not only better for your garden, it's also cheaper, and it's going to be much more well-rounded than Miracle-Gro is. So this has all the benefits, and this is kind of your nature's Miracle-Gro, if you will. This right here is worm castings. You can do this with compost. You can do this with composted manures. It really doesn't matter because just the thing is, you need something that's composted. And so, but what you're doing is you're breaking down all that organic matter. And when you break it down, it basically will have either water soluble or water insoluble nutrients. And so worm castings just so happen to be our fertilizer of choice because we have a lot of it right now. And what we're doing is we're extracting all of the water soluble nutrients out of the worm castings. So it's a great way to fertilize with a liquid. So if you're someone that waters and you want to fertilize as well, compost tea is going to do a great job of that. We also implement it quite a lot with our strawberry beds because they're quite full right now. They're really dense, and it's kind of difficult to get to the soil where normally we would like top dress with Trifecta Plus, which is like a granular fertilizer. It gets to be a little bit difficult applying it to the soil because there's not much soil left there. So because the plants are so dense, it's actually easier just to fertilize with a liquid. And so that's what we're going to be getting with a compost tea. So yes, we do it. And also, it's really effective. One of the things we found is that compost tea, with it being a very balanced fertilizer, it doesn't favor nitrogen, phosphorus, or potassium. It kind of favors them all because you're getting a really balanced fertilizer. The NPK found in worm castings will be different than what you find in, say, compost from your yard, or like a composted horse manure or cow manure or chicken manure, or things like that. But regardless, when things break down, organic matter breaks down, you're going to have about 2% nitrogen, about 1% phosphorus, and about 1% potassium. So it's about a 2-1-1. It's a very gentle, very light fertilizer, which is great. It's not going to burn your plants. You can't overuse it, which is wonderful. And also, like I said, it's very inexpensive. I mean, this right here was free. We just made it. You didn't have to go to the store and buy it or anything. So yeah, so that's what we do, and we really like it. One of the things too is that there's a difference, and that's what I kind of want to clear up too. Is a lot of you guys ask me, Luke, what's the difference between brewed and steeped compost tea? There's not a whole lot of difference other than you add a bubbler to compost tea, and you add some sugar, and then it becomes brewed. I prefer steeped. Steeped, which we'll get into, is a very simple method that you guys can do, and it doesn't require any other materials other than something to hold your compost and water, and that's it, really. Steeped or brewed, on the other hand, requires you to put water in a bucket, Make sure that water is unchlorinated and is sat for about 24 hours. Then you're going to take a molasses or a sugar source, add that to the compost and add that to the water, and then you're going to add a bubbler, and then you want to make sure that that bubbles for about 24 to 48 hours depending on your preference. And essentially what you're doing is you're growing the colonies of bacteria. This is going to be more of a bacterial drench that's going to help kind of the overall bacterial count in your soil. For us, in our opinion, you don't really need to do that because simply 1 tablespoon of worm castings has more bacteria than everyone on the planet combined. There's about 5 billion cultures of bacteria in a single tablespoon of worm castings. So there's plenty of bacteria. The beneficial bacteria are what help build soil structure and help kind of the soil food web exist. It helps keep your plants very healthy, and they help to source minerals that are locked in your soil to bring them to the plants in exchange for sugars that the plants are creating through photosynthesis. That is basically what we call a symbiotic relationship, and that will happen regardless if you're steeping or brewing. Okay guys, so what you want to do is you just want to take your bucket, take your hose, and fill it. It's really that simple. And so again, what this is doing is this is actually separating out all of the worm casting bits. It's making sure everything is kind of emulsified in the water. And what it's doing is it's actually separating out the water soluble from the water insoluble nutrients. Everything that's in this water right now is going to be anything that's actually dissolved in the water is going to be water soluble. Everything else that's still found in the sediment that's going to sink down to the bottom, that's a lot of your water insoluble. And that's still great fertilizer. We'll use that to top dress our fruit trees and things like that. But the water soluble is everything else that's found in the water, and that's what we're going to water our strawberries with. All right. So then what we're going to do is we're just going to swirl this around so we really just agitate everything. That's important because it's going to suspend those nutrients to really get things actually in the water. All right, and then we're just going to mix it up here. We just got some long boards we can get down to the bottom there because you do get a lot of sediment. As I stated before, the sediment is a lot of that water insoluble nutrients. As we mix, what we're doing is we're suspending the compost into the water. And when it suspends into the water, any of the water soluble nutrients immediately are dissolved into the water. And anything that is not able to be dissolved into the water sinks down to the bottom or floats to the top. Now you don't have to wait to use this. There's a lot of people that will recommend waiting 1 or 2 hours, but the fact of the matter is there's no benefit to doing that. If you wait 1 or 2 hours, you're going to get just as many nutrients as you have right now. And that's because by definition, water soluble nutrients are readily available to mix in water right away. Otherwise, they wouldn't be water soluble. They'd be water insoluble. So you can't have something in between. Either it's going to sink down to the bottom as water insoluble, or it's going to mix in the water as water soluble. Plain and simple. So you can use this right away. That means you don't have to wait. You don't have to worry about forgetting it. You can just mix it up and apply it, which is great. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to move over here and water our strawberries. Now you can dilute this if you want to dilute this and you feel like you want it to stretch a little further. You can always dilute this 2 to 1. But I find that since I have so much fertilizer, I can actually put water back in this. I'll get a little bit more out of this. I'll finish fertilizing this bed here, and I can, I have so much compost that I really don't need to dilute it because you're not going to risk burning these plants. You cannot burn these plants with how gentle this fertilizer is and the fact that it's organic. So use as much as you want, but if you're trying to use it sparingly, you can dilute it 2 to 1. Now a question I know will come up that I'm just going to cover right now is city water. Should I be letting my water set for about 24 hours to let the chlorine and chloramine come out? And the answer is yes. If you don't have a filter that takes the chlorine and chloramine out, you should be letting your water sit, or if you have a rain barrel, that's another great option. Don't use city water because chlorine and chloramine have been found to kill off bacteria. That's why your water is known as potable. Potable means drinkable water. And since obviously your municipal water doesn't want bacteria in your water to make you sick, they usually put that in there. A lot of times people also put fluoride in your water. So you want to make sure that you let your water sit. That way you get all those yuckies out of the water and it doesn't affect your compost tea. Okay, round 2. Still got a lot of color. That means we're getting a lot of nutrients. All right, so I'm just rinsing out my bucket here, and there's just gonna be some sand in the bottom, really. That's the only thing left. All the organic matter and lighter material has already kind of washed off. It's kind of coating some of the leaves, and we'll just take the hose and rinse that off, or when it rains, it'll just filter in around the plants, and it'll just build the soil quality, which is great too. You're never gonna hurt from adding compost tea. The other final thing that I know I'm gonna get asked is how often do we apply it? Can you over apply it? Can you apply it too often? The answer is no, you cannot apply it too much. Like I said, it will not burn your plants. And so we'll feed our plants about weekly when they're at this stage. The plants right now are fruiting and flowering. It's very important when they're fruiting and flowering to give them lots of nutrients, because when you have plants that are healthy and they're fruiting, they're gonna fruit larger and they're gonna give more fruit as well. So we always will fertilize weekly in this stage. Not to mention in the rainy season, when there's a lot of rain, oftentimes plants can get stressed from nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, because of that leaching issue we talked about where water will run through the soil. A lot of your plants can get stressed like that during a lot of rain. So because we've had so much rain, we've really been combating that with, it might seem counterproductive because you're adding more water, but that water has such a high nutrient content that they really don't suffer that much. It actually rebuilds the soil and gets them healthy again. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you do have any existing questions after this video, throw them down in the comments box below. I'll be happy to answer them. And I do hope that you try this. If you try it, let me know how it works for you. Or if you've tried it before, let me know how you like it. As always, this is Luke from the MIgardener channel, reminding you to grow big or go home, use compost tea, and we'll catch you all later. See ya. Bye.